Greetings, Star Wars fans, especially you comic book Star Wars fans. Maybe you read Marvel, maybe you read Dark Horse, maybe IDW, maybe you even love the 3D issues that Blackthorn Comics brought out. I'm John Edward Lee, here with another episode of Universe Expanding Books and Toys to talk about comics. This video is going to have no toys, no books, just comic books. My last video, part 1 to this, I showed the Black Series comic inspired figures that Hasbro has made so far. They've done some Dark Horse, they've done some IDW, and they've done some Marvel. Now, this video is going to be a top 10 list of characters that I think are likely to be made into Star Wars comic figures for the Black Series. Beyond that, I've got a bunch of my wish list, a bunch of characters that I have on my wish list that probably won't be made, but I think they're great characters and would make great figures. So that's what this is all about. Let's jump right into it. Top 10 characters I'd like to see in no particular order. I'm lying there in chronological order because that's the only way to experience Star Wars in my opinion. All right, number 1, Ulic Qel-Droma. Boy, did my eyes pug out of my head when I originally saw this issue. I've talked about it before. This is the first time I ever saw more than 2 lightsabers in one image, and it was amazing. Ulic Qel-Droma should have a figure. He has a comic pack figure for the 3.75 figures, but it is extremely expensive. I think it's like $600 worth now. I'm probably never going to own that. Hasbro, bring me a new figure of this character. I mean, look at that, the coloring. It would make a great figure. The padding, the blue, the red, tattered clothing. It would be awesome. Speaking of the Old Republic, number 2 would be Zane Carrick from Knights of the Old Republic. I believe this figure, this comic was probably worth more than $6 now. This is an amazing series by John Jackson Miller, who really breathed life into this series, which is based on the Knights of the Old Republic video game, but takes place like 500 years later. Zane Carrick is the main character in that. Here's his deal. He has Force ability. However, it's very unpredictable. Sometimes when he tries to use the Force, it works out for him. Sometimes when he tries to use the Force, it doesn't. He's Orko from He-Man. That's how he worked. Orko would sometimes do spells that would work. Sometimes he did spells that made it worse. Zane is like that, but that doesn't stop him from being an amazing hero. I'm going to talk about him later on. Speaking of the Knights of the Old Republic, you know what would be a great figure to have? Mandalore the Ultimate. Look at that guy. How amazing is he? He is an amazing character. They have done a 3.75 figure of him that was with Jango and Boba Fett, I believe. I own it. But I really wanted to make sure I did not show figures in this. I really wanted to focus on comic books alone and what I would like to see in future figures. So no point in looking at past figures, although I do love that they have that, and I'm very, very lucky to own that. Oh, I always forget this character's name. I went through all these comics and looked at the names to make sure I had them right. No, I don't even need to. It's Jareel. She has also had a figure made out of her. She is originally just a henchman. He teams around with Zane, and then it turns out that she is Force sensitive and eventually gets a much bigger series. This is kind of a weird issue because she's kind of in distress here, but she is a great character. Actually, one of my favorite characters of all times. Like I said, she had a 3.75 figure with actually the next character that I'm going to mention, and that's Rohan Dyer, the Mandalorian from Knights of the Old Republic comic book. There he is fighting with Zane. Despite that, he does become part of this crew. He's a great Mandalorian. You definitely see him without his mask on. He's got a very unique helmet that, being silver, may have even inspired the Mandalorian Din Djarin from the TV series. Really great character. Like I said before, they have made him as a 7.35 character in a comic pack with Jareel. How many times have I mentioned this guy? Before I even show you, he's one of my #1 favorite characters. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned him in like 4 videos at least so far. Quinlan Voss. Oh my God, I love this guy. I love him so much. He is a very, very cool character. He's showed up in 1 episode of the Clone Wars animated series, but in this series, Star Wars, which eventually became renamed Star Wars Republic, he is all over the place. A morally ambiguous Jedi who sometimes is undercover as a dark sider, sometimes he turns to the dark side, and my favorite thing about him in the new canon, he had an affair with Asajj Ventress, which is another character that I love. All right, so how many have we got so far? We're halfway through the list. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're a little over halfway, so 4 more to go. Of course, I've talked about this guy plenty, Dirge. Dirge is an amazing character. I promised myself I wouldn't talk about any figure characters that I mentioned in the last video, why you don't see a lot of Heir to the Empire, stuff like that, but Dirge needs a figure, a deluxe. If I can even submit to the greed of Hasbro, charge an extra $20 for this guy in a bigger package, and I will get him. Dirge is an amazing character. He has recently been recanonized in the Dr. Aphra comic book, but he has not had a great presence in that at all. He was in 1 issue, and by the time it was done, it looked like he was dead, and they haven't brought him back since, which is a tragedy because he was a big deal. Obsession was a series that focused on villains from the Clone Wars, and that would be a great cover for that. Another character that has been made into a 3.75 figure. Has any of the characters I've mentioned so far not been made in a 3.75 figure? I don't think so. But that proves my point that these characters should easily make the transition to 6-inch. Another example is Master K-Kruk. Oh, this guy is awesome. He is a massive Whippet Jedi. And he protects children. And he's existed in, this is Dark Times, it takes place between the prequel and sequel trilogies, but he has existed for a very long time. Some Jedi live for a lot longer, and he does. He had his origins in the Star Wars, aka Star Wars Republic comic book, and has shown up in many things. Yeah, you know what, now that I think about it, all top 10 of mine are figures that have been made before. That wasn't intentional, but again, to hammer the point home, these figures could easily be made into new ones. Dark Luke, my favorite version of Luke. Oh boy, do I love Dark Luke. This is my favorite. I don't care about what you think about the sequel trilogy Luke, because he almost taps into this to become Dark Luke, and I love that. That is an amazing cover, easily, and I mentioned it before, one of my favorite covers. Luke in the dark robes, with the look on his face, with his lightsaber, and the collar popped, is an amazing look. And I really hope they eventually go back and make that figure. It would be really easy to do. Throw his head on the Emperor body and you got it, you know? But I'm not Hasbro, much as that pains me. #1, not #1 in order, but number 10 in continuity, this figure really needs to be made. One of the most popular characters of all time, because there's a huge amount of sex appeal with Twi'leks, Darth Talon. And that costume is a little revealing, but tantalizing as well. I actually, as much as I think they could make this figure, I don't think they really would, because of the controversy over the prisoner Leia figure, which they actually called Slave Leia on the package. But this character is easily one of those popular. Look at her, like this cover like embodies her so much. She has gotten Cade Skywalker trapped in carbonite, who has an adversary as well as a potential lover for her, and she shows that in this image. An amazing character. Twi'leks are easily one of the most popular, red Twi'leks especially. Although I don't know if she's naturally red. All the Sith characters in Legacy of the, or it's just called Legacy of the Jedi, it's a book series, Legacy, have like a Darth print kind of print. So I don't know if her skin's naturally red or it's been tattooed red. All right, so that's my top 10 as far as characters I think could see. So now I have a big old stack of characters that I'd like to see that I don't expect to see. And again, these are in chronological order. Number 1, Nomi Sunrider, the wife of a Jedi who died, who picked up his lightsaber, found out she was force sensitive, and went to battle for the galaxy. An amazing character. I love green on Jedi especially, which we don't see in the movies much, but back in the day that was really popular. So I love this character. I would love to see a figure of her, maybe even her master what is it? I can't remember, but he looks like a big old Triceratops. Or that thing that blew little tennis balls in Herculoids. Thrawn, that's it, Master Thrawn. We talked about this guy already, but Ulic Qel-Droma turned to the dark side. When I first saw this issue, and I know I mentioned this before, I thought this was Anakin Skywalker. I had no idea this took place thousands of years before the movies. I thought it took place in the Clone Wars. However, he did turn to the dark side and would make an impressive figure. Eventually, he comes back from the dark side. Ulic Qel-Droma showed up again. His force power is gone, but still ever the hero. That costume would be amazing. Look at that headdress. Knights of the Old Republic. That's Tales of the Jedi, which is like 4,000 years before. This is about 350 before. No, 3. Because I think the video game Knights of the Old Republic is 350. I think this is 3. So, one of my favorite sets of characters are these bounty hunters. They're super dumb, but that's what makes them awesome. And the brothers, the Mumo brothers, look at those guys. They would make an amazing set of figures. I think that the fur that they have lined on their backs would be awesome. This would be an obvious 2-pack that they're never going to make because only I know those characters. All right. So, still with Knights of the Old Republic, I think the series that I have the most of is Knights of the Old Republic. This is an amazing dark side character who, again, it's a lot of sex appeal involved with this character. She is very cool. She has the red skin of a Sith. She is very much in lingerie. And that actually adds to the evilness of the character. Not that lingerie is evil, but when you see a character in a bustier or whatever you call that, and she's got red skin and a whip, and you know you're in trouble. And that's what actually makes her a really awesome character. You know, she's sexy and evil. If you're a G.I. Joe fan, she's the Baroness. So everyone knows Darth Malak. Everyone knows Darth Malak. But many people don't know that when he was a Jedi, he was known as Squint. This is about the point where he crosses over and joins, eventually becomes a Sith. But I would love to see a human version of Squint, aka Future Malak, as a character. You can tell by his tattoos on his head, and he still has his lower jaw. But that would be a great figure, especially since they are making a Malak character. Just another picture of Zane and Jarrell from my top 10, but also this character. Oh man, I'm going to have to look it up because I can never remember the names of the character, and I don't think it's even in here. It's like Griffin Hieroglyph or something like that. I can't believe I'm not remembering it because I really, 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 really do love this character. He is a Snuvian, I believe, but he is basically the most dirty businessman who has ever existed, and he basically keeps Zane around because he needs a Jedi with force powers to help him do his dirty deeds. He's not really that dirty, he's actually kind of a good guy, but you know how that goes with Star Wars characters. There's another Zane, just to prove the point that he would make an amazing character. Again, green on Jedi. Why don't we see that more often? Oh, I even looked up the name for this guy, but totally forgot it too. It starts with an H. Hazen. Hazen, leader of the Covenant, is a evil guy, but he is made of parts of different like robots and stuff. He's very much pieced together. This would make an amazing figure. Why do I not think Hasbro would ever make this figure? It's because it would require tooling from the ground up and a lot of detail. and that gets expensive for a character that nobody really knows but us comic fans. These are two important characters that came in a comic pack together. Weirdly enough, not with this issue. Asan Het and the Dark Lady, who eventually is tied to the Aura Singh origin. Asan Het is raised by Tuskens who became a Jedi, a very important character in a whole, as you will see later on, in an unexpected way. All right, so no, I'm not going to look it up. I think his name is Tuve. Oh, Wookiee names are hard, but check out this Wookiee Jedi. Like, an amazing character, would make an amazing figure. Unfortunately, you can't just throw a Wookiee head on a Jedi body that would make it work, so I don't think they're going to ever make this guy. He was never really that popular, and there have been plenty of Jedi Wookiees since, but at the time that this came out, he was the first one as far as I know. When the West End Games role-playing game came out, I dreamed of playing a Wookiee character. I felt no other race could possibly be as in tune to the natural forces Wookiees, and there have been plenty since. This guy's a favorite. You know I love Quinlan Voss, but for a while he had this unlikely partner named Villy. I think it was like Villy Mark Gagarmesh or something. I'm totally nuts, not it, but he went by Villy. And I always expected him to have a Russian accent like the characters in Grand Theft Auto 4. Anyways, he's a really funny guy. He's morally questionable, but still a good guy. Look at that. He's killed a Tusken, a Gungan, and an Ewok. And in fact, that's not even just a Gungan. That's totally Jar Jar and totally Wicket. Don't worry, they're okay. These aren't canon. They were, but I don't think this image ever was. Anyways, very cool character who has had a 3.75 figure, but I'd like to see him back. We're getting out of the prequel era and into the mid era, and there's this great comic book called Dark Times. This is Greenberg. Now I'm going to look this one up because I can never remember this character, but this character is great. This series is about Jedi and various other heroes really standing up against the Empire. It's very dark, hence the name Dark Times, but it is very good. Bomo Greenbark. Yeah, great character. I mean, looks like a Dinosaurian, which I really like. I love that gun. He is not a vicious character. He's very peaceful, but pushed to the limits by the Empire, he will do what must be done. There's K-Cook again, just to beat the point down that he is an amazing Jedi and would make an amazing figure, much like the Wookiee Jedi. The main character of Dark Times was a Jedi who survived Order 66 named Das Jinner. There he is. When he starts out, he actually has long hair. He almost looks elven, but as it goes on, he grows the beard, cuts his hair, and he adventures around in this garb. I can tell you right now, if you're a Star Wars figure fan, you want this. I mean, tell me you do not want this awesome figure. He is amazing. He is a cunning Jedi, a sad Jedi with a sad past. That makes him much, much more dynamic than many other characters. This one has been made twice as 3.75 figures, and I cannot get enough of them. Who am I talking about in this figure? Twin Engines of Destruction. Who? They're two characters that look exactly the same. Well, I am talking about this guy over here, Jodo Kast. This was originally a four-part comic in the Star Wars Insider magazine that they eventually put together as a Dark Horse issue, 32 pages, about that's like a comic and a half. Anyways, Jodo Kast is a bounty hunter who just decides to get himself a Mandalorian armor that looks mildly like Boba Fett and pose as Boba Fett. Guess what happens? Boba Fett tracks him down. Last issue for Jodo Kast. Going further into the future, we've got Dark Empire. This is the clone of the Emperor. I showed Dark Luke. They also made a 3.75 figure of this guy. This may seem like redundant because we know now that in the sequel trilogy there are definitely clone emperors. In fact, the Emperor in The Rise of Skywalker is a clone himself, but this is what they looked like back in the day. They came out young and fully developed and then aged rapidly. I would love to see a young Emperor figure because the Emperor is one of my favorite characters. So, not getting to the end, but getting to the last part of Star Wars continuity is Star Wars Legacy. Star Wars Legacy has so many characters, so many things going on with it. In fact, these aren't even in order because I was like just obsessed with going through which characters would work. There's Cade Skywalker, Delia Blue. Oh, I looked his name up, but I'm not going to get him, but that is Cade's number one. These guys would make great Pirates figures. All of them but him have had figures so far. I am so mad that I can't remember his name because he's a great character. He uses Yuuzhan Vong weapons and everything like that. It doesn't tell me on the first page, so I'm not going to beleaguer the point. Moving right along to other Legacy characters. The Emperor Baron Fell. I don't think he needs a figure. I don't think any of these characters need a figure. I just point out for context. His daughter, the princess, is an important character. Here's why. She's one of the Imperial Knights. The Empire in Legacy is a good empire. It takes place over 100 years past the original empire. It has a benevolent empire, and they're great. They don't focus on the Sith or the Jedi, so all their knights are neutral. They didn't never say gray Jedi, but you can call them gray Jedi. Look at their lightsabers, they're perfectly white. They look like a cross-between Jedi and Sith. And of course, the princess is one of their main ranks. They have made figures of all three of these characters in various packs. Another Cade Skywalker to show how cool he would look as a figure. Oh, Malaval, I think his name, Lord Malaval, or something like that. Anyways, he is a great Sith character who basically takes over the one Sith when Darth Krayt is not around. Similar in look to Masamita, but you can see he is even more evil, if that's even possible. So we talked about Darth Krayt. We've also mentioned Asan Het, but there's another character that you should know. It's not another character, it's the same character. There is Darth Krayt with his mask off. That's what shows you how cool that character would look if he didn't have his helmet. He's also the Tusken Jedi Asan Het. I would say spoiler alert, but those came out like 15 plus years ago. You should know that by now. There is Darth Krayt in his original outfit in his Yuuzhan Vong crab armor, Darth Talon, and Darth Nihil, who they have all been made into figures. I actually don't have him, but I do have these guys. Is that right? Who did he? I can't remember who he was in a pack with. I think he was in a pack with Delia Blue. Now, after Legacy ended, they came back into another series with a very interesting character, Anya Solo. This is obviously the descendant of Han and Leia. She came in as the main hero at the end. I think it would be a great character and a really cool companion piece to the Jaina Solo figure that they brought out a few years ago. The last one for Legacy is another one of that same, not the same Sith. I think this guy's got Darth Rywick. No, I think Melival's this guy. Darth Rywick was the other guy that I mentioned. I always mix up Quarren with the species that Masamita is, which I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, one more series to go. This is a really unique one. One of the last series that Dark Horse brought out was a series called The Star Wars. It is based on the original first script that George Lucas made. He did 5, I think, so it changed quite a bit. But I would love to see these characters come into fruition. Anakin Skywalker, Anakin Starkiller and Luke Skywalker. Not related, both Jedi. Look, he's riding a ostrich, it's like Joust. This was an amazing change. The Star Wars script went through a lot of changes. Most notably, Han Solo used to be a reptile who was on one of these covers. As well as, the ships were different, everything was different. Obviously, Anakin Skywalker and Luke Starkiller, it's hard to keep track of. There's another version of Anakin Starkiller because I think he would be the best looking character. He almost has Luke's yellow jacket from the end of Star Wars, but looks a little elvish. This is the cover of the original issue. You could see that Luke is an older Jedi. I like that they made him look like George Lucas. This is I believe that's Leia, but she looks like the original version of Luke. People tell me all the time that I'm crazy for this, but I swear that they also based Dr. Aphra on this character. Darth Vader has a more Asian-looking mask. There's Han Solo Reptilian. Chewbacca, whose original design went on to be Zeb Orrelios. C-3PO and R2-D2, and R2-D2 with the arms hanging out of his head became Chopper. So a lot of influence came onto Rebels from not only the Ralph McQuarrie concept, but the original script of Star Wars. So that's my wish list, my top 10 and my wish list for what I'd like to see in future figures. I think that top list is very likely because there's only so many comics. I would like them to not specifically focus on Marvel. I would even like to see some High Republic characters start to show up. That's a slippery slope. There's like 100 High Republic characters. If they ever start making figures for those, the comics and the books, I'm there for that. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey through many of my favorite comic book characters. As always, I really appreciate you for viewing. I promised this video like 4 weeks ago. It's hard for me to keep track on these videos. I have a small audience. I don't get a lot of feedback, but I can't shut up about Star Wars. Also, next week, I'm going to London, UK for my first time to spend a little time hanging out before Star Wars Celebration London, Europe 2023. I'm very excited. First time out of the country in 25 years, but I also really love being around you Star Wars fans. If you're there and you see me, come say hi. Tell me you like the channel. I will be handing out cards to get new people involved in the group. But other than that, pretty much a waiting game until I leave the country in a week. Hey, thanks for joining me. My name is John Edward Lee. This is Universe Expanding Books and Toys. And remember that the Force will be with you always.